for joining us tonight. We're excited to meet with you and brief you on the Gun Safety Consortium campaign, the history of it, and where we are currently and what we can do moving forward. We are asking, just to repeat one more time, if you're coming in right now, because we are a pretty good sized group, we're asking that you put your name and your affiliate and your, I know Jim is texting me to tell me to introduce myself. I was just about to. This is how Jim and I operate all day long. This is all right. So anyway, if you could put your name, affiliate, and organization in the chat, we'd appreciate it. And with that, I am Diane Bosey, and I'm part of United Power for Action and Justice. And I'm a member of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Oak Park, and have been working with Jim Schwarber and bugging him for a long time now. So he and I are partners on all of this work. So anyway, you'll hear from him in a few minutes. So one of the things we wanted to do tonight to kick this off is to ask you all to think about what is it that brought you here tonight? Is it a story? Is it an experience? Is it interest? Is it just to learn more to share with your institution? Whatever it is, what we'd like to do, because there's so many of us, we're not going to go through individually. So I'm sure everybody's like, shoo, I don't have to tell everybody. But we are going to pair you up here in just a moment and give you about 5 minutes to share with each other. And then we'll come back and ask some of you to share with the group, or whoever's willing to. You all saw our magical departure and return. So anybody willing to share with us what you maybe?
Hi everyone, I'm Brandy. I use she, her pronouns. I'm formerly part of Lake County United, but now I moved to Chicago, so I'm just kind of in this void area. I came here because I live in Chicago. I knew this gun violence initiative was happening, but when I lived in the suburbs, it wasn't a huge issue for me. But now I'm like, I want to know what's going on, what's the progress, because sometimes it's scary. I don't even go outside when it's dark outside. So I just kind of want to, I'm just here to be more informed.
I was fortunate that Meta and I, and where she moved her picture, I can't find her now. This other lady were in our group, and both Meta and I were connected to the Highland Park incident. So I started with that. And then the issue for me at my church is there are people that are concerned about their Second Amendment rights, and Lake County United's restricting their ability to use guns. And I have to do a presentation to my parish council, and I needed some material to help me with that. And Meta pointed out that 60% of the gun deaths are gunned by suicide. And then I knew his name was Kevin McCarthy. He and his wife were killed in Highland Park, and he was a neighbor of mine as a kid growing up. So it kind of got me close. And then Meta talked about guns being just picked up when a kid breaks up with a girlfriend. And Barb Gosh maybe remember this. It was about 20 years ago. And this guy that went to the Mundelein High School took a rifle off his dad's gun rack and went after his girlfriend out on Gulf Road here in Libertyville.
Yeah,
so it's a big deal. But how do you address this? And maybe some of you guys have got that answer like Meta had.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, I think we're at least working our way to it, right? Clara, thank you, Gary. Clara.
Yeah. Hi. I want to stay informed. DuPage United is involved in the gun safety, the mental health, and the housing, and I think that crosses all affiliates. But in addition to being informed, I want to understand where it began. I've been part of DuPage United for 4 or 5 years, and I also see this as a teaching opportunity for myself, as far as leadership development, because of the way we always approach our meetings. It's interactive, and you learn new things, new things about successes, losses, that kind of things. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita?
Hi, I met with Matt Gross, and it was very interesting because he's from Peoria. And he's worked, he's had connections with Amy Lawless, and they're trying to get something started there. And he was very interested in what we are doing. And I'm really pleased that someone from another community has heard about this and wants to know more.
Great, great. We'll take two more. Don?
I think it's important for us to be able to articulate our strategy to our constituents, to our congregations. I've been a part of Diane's or our strategy for a while, and been a stockholder in Smith and Wesson and some of the gun manufacturers. But I think it's important for us to be able to articulate exactly what that strategy is. And what brought this home to me is that after the Highland Park incident, a friend of mine who grew up in Highland Park sent me some of the things that Highland Park is doing. And then I looked up and saw all of the different organizations that are interested in gun control and gun safety throughout the United States. And you can't see it. It's a daunting list. You know, we have people in our congregation that are very involved in Moms Demand Action. You have the Every Town for Gun Safety. You have the Brady Center. You have Giffords. You have Violence Policy Center. And I'm wondering if we all want essentially the same thing. And I'm wondering if we're not diluting our efforts somehow. So I would like Diane to address that especially.
Marlon? Thank you, Don.
Good evening. I'm Marlon Gosa. I wasn't in the room because I was a little late. Sorry for that.
No
But
worries.
I'm from Precious Blood, one of the restorative justice hubs on the south side of Chicago. And gun safety and gun laws is very and always high on the conversations in our organization.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much. I'm happy to have all of you here. I hope that by the end of this, we've addressed some questions and some of your interest in this. We won't get to everything tonight, but this is a good place for us to begin. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Jim Schwarber, and I'm a leader with United Power and at Ascension Church in Oak Park, Illinois. We know that Illinois Regional Metro IAF is reclaiming communities in 3 different ways. We're doing it through our housing work in North Lawndale, Waukegan, Elgin, and that's just to name a few examples of where work is proceeding right now. We're also doing it through the mental health work, which includes the new CSU that's going to be opening soon at Ascension in Aurora, a living room in Evanston where we've worked with the city council, and other efforts throughout the region to bring a mental health to the community. But tonight we're going to focus on our work to advance gun safety and really to help prevent suicides, accidental shootings, and gun deaths. Our approach on this issue is fiercely nonpartisan, it's non-legislative, and it's winnable. It's based on the fundamentals of organizing, building relationships, organizing people and organizing money, and doing the research and power analysis to get to the win. It's very hard work. As Diane mentioned earlier, we've been working together for many years. I think I've been working on this for well over 8 years. And you might ask why, but for me, it's because the passion I feel from the developers and the police on this issue. A lot of the work I do is with the developers bringing products to the market and trying to make guns safer. So many of those developers have been touched personally by a tragedy. And one story that really sticks with me is about a deputy sheriff lives out in Utah. He came home, he told us this story one day. He came home late one night and didn't lock up his service weapon as he usually did. He put it up on a closet shelf. The next morning, he didn't think about it and was out working in the garage. He heard a shot. His teenage daughter found the gun and committed suicide. His entire family is now devoted to promoting gun safety. And they've got a great mechanical lock that's usable on Glocks. Our work is not the only game in town. As Don mentioned, there's many, many organizations throughout the country working on this issue. And we support the work of other groups, but our work is focused on this area because we feel this is winnable. Again, it's non-legislative, it's not gun control. We're not trying to take people's guns away. From Lake County United, you can let people know that. We understand people want to have guns. We just want them to be stored safely in their homes. So tonight, you'll hear how we got here. You'll hear some stories of recent local work and the challenge to take the campaign to the next level.
As you all know in this work, and because you've all been involved with your affiliates, we're in it for the long haul, not for the news cycle or the election cycle, which means what? It's, I'm actually gonna do this real quick because I'm gonna talk to you all for a minute. It's challenging work, right? We make progress and then things slow down and suddenly everything starts to move quickly again. And have you all experienced this in your campaigns? Raise your hands, right? We get frustrated, we get challenged by it. Sometimes we have to break things up and reorganize around it. That's how this goes. But it's also fun, right? We wouldn't keep doing this if there weren't times that it actually felt fun and successful. Gun violence is not fun, but the work itself and the relationships that we develop are what keep us going on this campaign. So we started working in this issue of reducing gun violence in 2013, and it specifically started following the event at Sandy Hook Elementary. And within a few months, United Power, Manhattan Together, which is an affiliate in New York, East Brooklyn Congregations, and another organization realized that we all cared about this issue. We all were dealing with issues in our cities. And we thought, what could we do together? Just like regionally, we have all discovered the power of our affiliates working together. That's what we discovered across Metro IAF is that, hey, together, we actually could build more power on this. And we launched this campaign, and it's a first in Metro IAF history to have this campaign across affiliates. So the campaign in the beginning, and some of you will know this, but a lot of you I think don't know this history, was originally named Do Not Stand Idly By, from Leviticus 19:16, do not stand idly by while your neighbor's blood is shed. And we knew from the beginning that we couldn't do this alone, that we had to build relationships and partnerships, that we were dealing with a complex issue with a lot of political issues around it. And so we did what we do. We engaged with other organizations, like the Episcopal Church of the USA had a bishops group that we engaged with who'd been working on it. We engaged with the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility. And Don, to your point, we talked to Brady Campaign a lot. We talked to Moms Demand a lot. We're working on a high level where we're talking to those organizations to see what they're doing. We worked with the Major Cities Police Chiefs Association, the US Conference of Mayors, the White House under the Obama administration. We had relationships during that. And we continued to focus on building relationships with individual police chiefs, governors, attorney generals, and other public officials around the country in organizing fashion, right? We've spent nearly 10 years developing relationships. But from its inception, we based the objectives of Do Not Stand Idly By on the belief that part of the responsibility to curb gun violence belongs to the industry that profits from it. if you've been to any action, you've heard me say this. I say this all the time. We feel the gun manufacturers should be seen and not hidden. We felt this very strongly. And in 2013, if you think back, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about the manufacturers. I really do believe we've changed that conversation. We show pictures of the CEOs. We took the gun manufacturers out of the cover of the NRA, because that's what everybody wanted to focus on, was the NRA. And we said, we've got to look to where the money is, and it's the gun manufacturers. So we are still focused on them. And what we think they should be doing is making their products safer and improving their distribution practices. We believe that safety should be their highest priority. So as we do in organizing, again, we organize people and money. So in our power analysis, we discovered that 40% of all weapon and ammunition purchases are with the US military and law enforcement. So all of our tax dollars are purchasing all of the weapons that the military buys, that the DOJ buys, that the DOD, the VA, your law enforcement. We are purchasers. We are buyers of those products. And we have been working these last 9 years to leverage that purchasing power with community members, law enforcement, mayors, etc. And again, what we've had to do throughout this process, because this is what happens with organizing, is we organize and then we have to reorganize and rethink and move forward. So I'm just going to share with you some of the highlights of the last 7 or 8 years of doing this. And how it's looked, to give you some of this history. So now I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Can you all see that? So this lovely group of people, and I'm right here with short hair, I haven't seen since then. This lovely group of people traveled to Europe in 2015 because we needed to do some research. And we also wanted to find out, because manufacturers are headquartered in Europe. We wanted to go firsthand to some of their locations and their headquarters. We attended what is the biggest military and police gun show in Europe. It's called their IAF gun show. It was in Nuremberg in March of 2015. And we actually purchased a booth. And we were there with, this is a lot of clergy. And honestly, out of this group, 7 of us are still working on this campaign. And I can tell you, at this booth, we had the taser booth next to us. So we were hearing the tasers every few minutes being demoed. And we were in a big convention hall. And we spent our job, the first entire day we were there, was to visit all of the different booths and try to build some relationships with the trade show people there for Glock and Sig Sauer and Sturm Ruger and all of the other gun manufacturers that were there. And on the first day, they liked us. By the second day, they were starting to be concerned about us. And because Bishop Miles, who's one of the people in this picture, who's was an amazing leader out of Baltimore, died about a year ago. And it's been a huge loss for that community and for Metro. But he would lead prayer circles every 2 hours in this gun show. So that's where the fun came in on this, really trying to shake up this group of people in this trade center, to in this event, to try to get information and to get to CEOs, which we were successful. And here at this gun show, this is important. One of the things we discovered is that Glock this was a huge wall. And I don't know if you can see it, but it says Conquest of USA, New York Police Department. That was a focus of Glock. And so we took a big picture of this, and we then took it to the commissioner of the NYPD, who was not happy about Glock advertising their conquest of the New York Police Department. And in this picture is our East Brooklyn congregations having their own action, which looks a lot like the way we do actions, right? We all do the work the same way. And this is Commissioner O'Neill And at this meeting, he agreed to press Glock on some dealer accountability. They were having issues with gun dealers in the area. And so he was using his purchasing power. And that was exactly what we have been trying to drive at. So you are a purchaser of these products, use your power. We would never have known about that had we not been there to show him what Glock was doing. So in 2016, so we kept working through this again, right? We were in Europe. We talked to, along with talking to manufacturers, we talked to some of the new developers in the marketplace. And at that time, we were focused on smart guns. We didn't know about anything else other than smart guns, and they were not really ready for market, but we were meeting with entrepreneurs in that arena to find out what we could learn about smart guns. So what a smart gun basically means, the gun won't operate unless it's an authorized user. Much like your phone. Does it work with a fingerprint image? Does it work with an eye image or RFID, which is a ring? You know, you've seen smart guns probably in movies because there's always been this push for them, but the technology was just not there. So we're having so think about this from a organizing and strategy perspective. We're focused on the gun manufacturers, but we're also building relationships with developers who are trying to break into the industry with safer products. So we did we decided that we really needed President Obama to get on board with this. And so we spent a good part of 2015, really, after we got back from Nuremberg, really trying to get the White House to pay attention to this. And we made them angry at some points, and then they were fine. And then we made them angry again. But because of our relationship with Senator Murphy, we actually did get to Obama, and he used some of our language for one of his executive orders that you may recall that he delivered in January of 2016. He ordered that there be specifications made for smart gun purchases. Now, this may not sound like a big deal, but it actually was a big deal because we then worked with the DOJ, and they started writing up what would be required for a smart gun to be purchased by the military or law enforcement. So this was a huge step forward in getting acknowledgement that this was an important thing to happen, to get smart guns, to get the military and law enforcement focused on this. And we actually got them to write the specifications up, and then Obama left office and things came to a screeching halt. And so we had to reorganize, and we had to think through, what are we going to do now? And what we started working on, Don mentioned this earlier in his intro, is we decided to look in the US at the two gun manufacturers who are public. And Greg Pierce, who many of you know in the area, Greg Pierce knew one of the nuns. Do you all remember Dick's Sporting Goods and the nuns that got them to change their business practices? Greg Pierce knew one of the nuns because he knows everybody. And we had a conversation, and she connected us with the Interfaith corporate responsibility group that invests pension funds for priests and for the Catholic Church and for other Presbyterian Church, etc. So we started working with them, and they were in the process of introducing a resolution to go after Smith & Wesson and Sturm Ruger. Again, the only two public gun manufacturers. And we helped with that. Because of our relationships and congregations in New York, we knew executives at BlackRock and other folks, and we were able to win this resolution at both companies. And that was a huge deal. Some of you may have attended. We had some local actions around this. It was very exciting. And they were required. So what happened is they were required to provide a report within 6 months telling us what they were doing on safety. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then throughout all of this, again, we were continuing to keep our relationships with developers happening. And there's, I don't know if you've heard, there's Smart Tech Challenges Foundation that was working with entrepreneurs. We started calling all of those entrepreneurs, and they were all struggling. They had products or they had things they could demo, but they weren't quite ready. So we've held 2 Smart Tech Expos. We had one in New Jersey early on, and then our Milwaukee affiliate in January of 2019 said, let's put a big one on here and bring people in. And we have a very strong relationship with Chief Kaminsky in Park Ridge. He's been a part of this campaign from the beginning. He brought 23 police chiefs from Illinois to Milwaukee to attend this expo. And we had a total of about 130 police chiefs in the room at the time. And we, here's some of the demos. You can see Chief Kaminsky here. This is one of our developers, Timio. And when I say our, I just mean that we're in relationship with and testing their products. This is a man named Will, who is out of Florida. His product is Gun Guardian. This is Kai Keffer, who's been working on a smart gun for years, still working on it. But all of these police chiefs were fascinated by this. And it was in this event that we basically reorganized the campaign. We had a debrief of the Illinois police chiefs that were there. And in those moments, many of them said, you know, the smart guns just don't seem ready. We don't think people are ready for that. But I really liked that lock that one guy had. And I really liked this other lock that this other guy had. And I think that'd be interesting. So all of a sudden, it shifted our focus from smart gun technology to these emerging locking systems that basically fill this void in the marketplace between cable locks. Look, Jim, I actually had it with me. Oh, here. Do you all see this? Cable locks. These come with guns, or you can buy them, but nobody uses them because they're not easy to use. So we're trying to fill the void between this and a safe, which we believe is the gold standard for security, right? Every gun owner should be using a safe, but the reality is, and all the studies show, that over half of gun owners don't secure their weapons at all. So this event shifted everything for us. And we started working on, let me go back to this for a second so I don't confuse things. So we started down this road and ended up, because of our relationships with public officials, we were presenting this idea of doing something around testing these products with law enforcement, because here's another thing: gun owners follow law enforcement on what weapons to buy, how to store, how to use their weapon, how to get trained on it, all of those things. So we knew law enforcement was key. The other key component of this is that law enforcement has been poo-pooing this technology for years and years and years. We want them to get hands-on experience with it so that they can start to buy into this idea that, oh, wait a minute, we can apply smart technology to guns and to weaponry. And if we can do that, then we are in essence creating this market of safety products and helping support this market that the gun manufacturers are ignoring. And by the way, the gun manufacturers were invited to this expo. They were invited to the other one. They refused. And remember that shareholder resolution, that report was delivered. And what it said in it, they obviously worked on it together. It was about the same thing from each company. It was about 40 pages long. They said they had no responsibility around safety, and it was not, they went so far as to say it was not a reputational risk to them. So that was their reaction, right? The actions and the reaction. They're not responsible. Safety's not their big concern. So all of that at this point, this was in 2019, we decide with Mayor Cranley of Cincinnati, he heard us talking about this. He said, let's do something. Let's organize mayors and police chiefs, buy these products from these developers and get some testing done. And in January of 2020, we launched the Gun Safety Consortium. So the goals of the Gun Safety Consortium, we're nonpartisan, we're municipalities, we're made up of municipalities, county, states, we're expanding hopefully into some universities and other organizations. Police are testing products that we buy from these entrepreneurs. They give us, and the thing about this is right now, the way it's set up, 3 to 5 officers in a department, usually they're part of their training, their range masters are involved, and they do testing of technology all the time. They're testing weapons all the time. They're testing tasers. So this is not a heavy lift for these police departments. And this is, none of this is for on duty. It's all off duty. And they fill out evaluation forms about what they're doing. We have a lot of criteria that we ask them to evaluate this on. It's in a Google form. It's easy for them to fill out. And part of the reason we have all this criteria we're asking is because in the product testing process, what we're trying to get at is, would this locking system prevent unauthorized use of this firearm? So would it keep a child from using this gun if this lock was on it? Would it keep it from getting stolen? Would it keep a teenager from turning it on themselves? That's what we want to know. Is it better? And it comes down to, is it better, same, or worse than a cable lock, or better, same, or worse than a biometric safe? So, and then in the process, we have a ton of other questions we ask, because our other overarching goal is to provide useful feedback to these developers so that they can make their products the best they can, and we can build this marketplace. Some of these products are already in the market, but these developers are always looking for improvements. They appreciate the feedback from law enforcement. Law enforcement likes being involved in this. Our biggest challenge is getting the departments to pay the joining fee, because we have no money to buy these locks unless they join and pay to do it. So does this all make sense? Are people following along? Because I can't see you. We'll have time for questions later. But I do want to say that let me just say this first, the cumulative stats. Here's where we are. We have 18 law enforcement departments and 1 private security firm right now doing testing. That's across 8 states. We've distributed a total of 130 products. And part of this is we have limited quantities that come in from these developers, and we have compatibility issues. Some products only work on Glocks right now, some work on Sturm Ruger, some work on Smith & Wesson. So it's a lot of juggling, and Jim and I do this, and we're trying to constantly figure out who gets to test what. And then to date, we've received 150 evaluations of products. So a few of the other things we're working on, we're trying to get funding for the consortium. You all, if you were at the action in July, did any of you hear me begging Senator Durbin for $62,500? If you did, I will have you know he did not give us $62,500. And we need to raise money. We need to raise funds so that we can move forward. We met with the DOJ last month, and they have recommended contacts at the DOD and the VA for us. So we're finally at a level where we are potentially getting closer to getting some funding. We feel this is a public safety issue, and public dollars should be going into getting more testing done and getting products purchased so that we can do more. We have a meeting with the ATF next month with Steve Dettelbach, who's the new director, to talk about ATF being involved in this. And we finally are at the point where we may be doing an academic study. There's a healthcare company in New York that is putting a study through the Ethics and Review Board. We're close to having that approved. Once that's approved, we will start a civilian gun study on using these locks, which will be a huge step forward as well. So some of the things we're looking at moving forward with, we have more locks to test over the next 4 to 6 months for these departments. And then new departments that join will go back and test the ones that have already been tested by our current departments. We have 2 smart guns in the works, but as I've said, this technology is so challenging that it's taken a while to get it, but we expect that to happen. So we're looking to increase the number of law enforcement departments testing products. We're trying to get deeper into some law enforcement departments so that they purchase these locks for their people. We can see how that works. And then again, beginning the civilian expansion. And I am going to stop there and turn it back over to Jim.
I appreciate the information. And now we're going to hear a few local stories regarding 3 municipalities here in Illinois that we're working on to get them to join the Gun Safety Consortium. And Maida, would you like to tell the story on Highland Park, please?
Okay. I wish I could say that this is going to be a happy story. In 2018, Highland Park got a new police chief. His name is Lou Jogman. And very soon after he became the chief, we set up a meeting with him. It was purely a relational meeting. We wanted to get to know him. We weren't going to press him on anything, but we did want to get to know him and see what he felt like. And actually, we have 2 reasons. One, the gun safety issue, and the other was actually CIT training, which those of you who have been around Lake County United know that we were working with. And in fact, we had met with the Highland Park mayor prior to this. We learned his history, and that included the fact that his father, who had also been a police officer, was a victim of gun violence. It's a terrible, it's a heroic story. It's a terrible story. His father was trying to talk to a man who was holding somebody hostage, and his father offered to trade himself for the hostage, and he did, and he was shot in the head. But one thing that came out of that is that Chief Jogman gave us his personal email and invited us to stay in touch. So I did. I began sending him periodic updates. I didn't, overwhelm him with stuff, but when there was something new going on, I updated him. And when we got to the RFP, which I don't think Diane mentioned, but Do Not Stand Idly By and the Gun Safety Consortium, primarily the Gun Safety Consortium, sent out an RFP in an effort to identify more developers of these locks, and he signed on to it, but only after it was cleared by the city manager. The city manager holds a lot of power in Highland Park. So when the results of the RFP came in, we invited Chief Jogman to be on the call and hear the results. He sent his deputy. When we presented to the Lake County Chiefs of Police, he sent his range manager. We continued to send him updates. Kind of, I could have done a lot of things. I had his personal email. We then talked with him earlier this year, specifically to talk about the National Gun Safety Consortium. And Diane was at that meeting. Chief Jogman appeared interested. He appeared supportive. We sent him some written materials. He sent those to the city manager, and the city manager balked. She has concerns about the cost and the legalities. We talked with her, we invited her to talk with our legal counsel, which I believe she did. And there has been no change. We have continued to stay in touch with him. You all know what happened in Highland Park on July 4th. And in fact, yes, I waited a while and sent him a note. Let me go back to the fact that he used to be the I think the assistant chief under Kaminsky, and we did mention to Kaminsky about this, but so far it has not. So I wish I could say it's been that he's jumped on the bandwagon. The truth is he's interested, but so far nothing has come from that. But I've continued to stay in touch and will continue to send him updates.
Thanks very much, Maida. We appreciate the story. And now we're going to move to Rita Kramen, who is going to tell us about our recent meetings with the city of Naperville.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We had a meeting with Chief Aries of Naperville on August 16th. Our goal was to determine the gun safety concerns of the Naperville Police Department, to present information about the gun consortium, and to determine the Naperville Police Department's interest for the gun safety consortium. We had represented there all the members of the Naperville communities that are part of DuPage United. That is St. Thomas the Apostle, the Muslim Center, and Congregation Beth Shalom of Naperville, as well as Diane and Jim. We asked Chief Aries about what their concerns were. He was very valuable. He was very open, very talkative, and that he needed no prodding. He emphasized that although there's a low crime rate in Naperville, they have confiscated illegal guns, many illegal guns, not many of whom were carried by Naperville residents. His concerns were a lack of accountability for those committing crimes with guns and those with illegal guns, people leaving unsecured guns in places, Naperville citizens in places that can be accessed by others. Guns taken away from people who have issued threats and shouldn't have them, but those guns are returned to someone else in that same household. So it's still there in the household. His concern was the FOID enforcement, that the state police were overwhelmed. Of course, he was also interested in access to school buildings and, of course, suicide. Diane and Jim explained the gun consortium thoroughly to Chief Aries. He was so enthusiastic. Sounds like Chief Jogman initially, and said, where do I sign up? He was very impressed with Diane and Jim showed him examples of gun locks. He was ready to get one, he thought. was wonderful. So he wanted to talk to his gun master, and Diane said she would send him all the material of the consortium, a detailing of the costs. He was told approximate costs. He said there should be no problem, and the paperwork to sign up. And so that sounded really good. And this shows you the power of perseverance. So you have to keep persevering. So what challenges did we face? Well, the meeting was scheduled for 45 minutes. However, on that particular day, well, first of all, the first initial meeting was called off because Chief Aries, as well as a whole bunch of people in his department, had COVID. Our second meeting was scheduled for 45 minutes. However, it had to be shortened for 30 minutes. The problem was there was a huge vote going on in the Naperville City Council on whether assault weapons should be banned from sale in Naperville. And so he had to run off to another meeting. He was apologetic and said, if you need more time, schedule another meeting, that will be fine. The other challenge was that Diane sent him a whole bunch of material and there was no response. And there were inquiries about this and still there was no response. Jim responded, I responded. I do say though that what we found with Chief Aries and what I think is probably similar to most police chiefs is that someone in the community, such as myself, are more likely to, they're very responsive to that, or more responsive, let's say. So we finally heard from Chief Aries, and what he said was he talked to his gun master, that he's still very interested, but he says that his life has been very busy for himself and the whole department at the moment, and he would like to schedule a meeting for the winter, which we will do, and strategize about that. Joys. You need to know about the joys. So it's one of the great things was getting to know Chief Aries, and I had met him at previous meetings for mental health and crisis intervention concerns that Meta has talked about. He was very open, and I enjoyed meeting him. He now knows me by name. It gives our congregation or whatever organization you have a lot more input. He sees that you are involved with the community, as well as our St. Thomas and the Muslim Center. It's also super cool to work with people from different religions, from different backgrounds, who all have a common goal. So meeting with like-minded individuals is really nice, and I have not at all given up hope. I feel very positive that we can have influence, and I feel that he is interested, and I hope that he will join, and looking forward to further contact that he is open to. So that's my report.
Great, thanks very much, Rita. And now we're going to hear from Larry Davidson about a recent meeting with the city of Batavia. This just occurred in the last couple of weeks, so it's some new work we're doing.
Yeah, so I belong to Fox River Valley Initiative, which encompasses a large geographic area within Western Chicago suburbs. Right now, we're focusing our efforts primarily on the cities of St. Charles, Geneva, and Batavia. And as far as activist issues regarding gun safety, affordable housing, mental health. So what we did, we're trying to get the police chiefs and the police departments to agree to join the consortium. And we realized that the way to do that is put pressure on and get the commitments from the city councils or city government personnel to please ask the police departments to contribute or join up. We found that talking to the mayor and police chiefs, they all give us lip service, but when it comes to putting rubber meets the road, there's no follow-up action. So what we decided to do was kind of backdoor it and work through a city council or city governments. And we happen to have a person that one of our pastors knew a council member from Batavia. I also knew another person from the Council of Batavia who happened to be part of FRVI years ago, so he's very supportive. So as a result, our challenge was to get that topic on the city council agenda. So after talking with those two individuals, they agreed to put it on the agenda for the next monthly meeting, which happened to be, as Jim said, last week. So as a result, we were invited to come, and Tim Schwarber graciously agreed to come out and speak in front of the group, gave a very powerful presentation on the purpose of the Gun Safety Consortium, went in great detail about it, and people were listening, they were taking notes. And following up with Jim, we had some other speakers, including my associate pastor, Andy Peeler, and then pastor for the First Presbyterian Church, Michelle Wan. They showed up in collar. And so when you show up, have a person in the faith or ministry show up in collar, that's also a very powerful message. So I think we got their attention. As of right now, we have, they all nodded their heads and were very supportive. Didn't commit to it outright, but we've got some follow-up meetings scheduled in November with two of the council members, or at least one of them right now. So we're hopeful that he will agree to push the police chief to put it on their agenda, on their budget. That's Batavia, so that's part of our action. The other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to reach out to, again, to St. Charles and Geneva by way of letter campaigns. And we feel that the best way to get their attention is through their constituents. So what we're trying to do is put together a draft letter that individuals can send to their city council person saying, here's what the issues are, here's the Gun Safety Consortium, here's my take on it, would you please put this on your agenda and give it consideration. So we're trying to do that, organizing that within our various churches and entities, and I'm starting to do that next week. I had some help from Jim and Diane in putting together a letter that's very easy. All you have to do is the person sending it just needs to sign their name, put their address and their own personal story if they want to. They feel free to edit it, but it's easy. All you got to do is take that template letter, sign it, and forward it on to your city council rep. So it's a very minimal effort on the constituents to reach out to their city council representatives. So hopefully we'll get Batavia to eventually buy in. If we get them to buy in, then we can go to Geneva and St. Charles saying, look, you know, we got Batavia involved in this. How about you guys? You know, will you step up? So we're trying to do it from the ground level. Trying to get from top down doesn't seem to be very effective. So hoping that if the city council reps start getting these letters coming in from people from various jurisdictions, that'll get their attention. So nothing happens overnight. We're a little impatient, but it was good progress last week rather. I think it was a good meeting. I saw a lot of energy. There were probably 5 or 6 people there from FRVI. We also connected with I think the vice chair or chairperson of Moms Demand Action. He was there and also spoke. So we are consolidating our efforts, but at the same token, you know, we don't want anybody else's organization to influence how we behave or what we do or hold us back. So we're trying to push forward as best we can. So that's where we're at now. But I thank you, Jim, for coming out. You did a great job, and I think Amy spoke very well. And we actually had one of our council reps speak very strongly about this, saying, you know, this is this community safety issue. We should be spending our tax dollars for this. And you think about the amount of money that, you know, we're asking them to contribute is a very minuscule portion of their budget. So it's a, you know, it's a no-brainer. It's a winnable situation. So, you know, we just need to keep pushing forward. We know we're going to probably experience our setbacks and frustrations, but last week I think was a very, very positive start to our campaign. So.
Thanks, Larry. I think, yeah, as I recall, I think at least 4 of the council people spoke in support of it. It was also great that the police was aware of the new campaign going on by the chiefs of police of right to carry, duty to secure, where they are pushing police departments to make sure that their recruits get gun safe so they can lock their guns. But it was a great meeting. So thank you very much for your time, Larry.
You're welcome.
We're going to take a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions or reactions to the stories or what Diane had said. You know, we've thrown a lot of information at you here in the last half hour, 40 minutes. So if you have any questions, raise your hand and we'll try to address them.
I'm curious about the, we had early on conversations with our police department here in Glen Ellen. I'm curious what the cost is for the gun consortium, this balking that we're hearing from police departments. If the fee's unreasonable, I'm trying to get sorted out.
For a department of that size, the fee is $2,500 a year for most departments, honestly. Now, if it's a large municipality, you know, they might pay a larger fee, but they get additional products to test.
And you know, Claire, we've actually had private constituents offer to pay, and there's still competency. And so I think it's really power concedes to demand, right? So I think in most of these situations, we just don't have enough power. And so it's a matter of really regionally, if we want to do this, we need to build our power to move this forward. And so, because, you know, Chief Kaminsky's was because there was such a long time relationship with him. And so I think in Evanston, went really well because there was such a strong relationship there. So I think that's part of it, is really building those relationships. The money can always come somewhere, which is what we're fighting for, so that we don't even have to have that conversation. Don?
Any other questions?
Don has his hand raised.
Yeah, Diane, you mentioned working with other organizations. To you or Jim's knowledge, are there other organizations such as Moms Demand Action, which has a gigantic national profile, working in any non-legislative capacity and working with manufacturers? Are we the only organization working with manufacturers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I get that all the time. Why aren't you working with them? And the bottom line, whether it's the Ethan's Law people or the Newtown people or the Sandy Hook people or Moms Demand, or because we're in the room together at different events, right? And different gatherings. We continue to be the only ones who are non-legislative. And we had a meeting just recently with the Everytown folks, you know, which is Bloomberg, and Moms Demand is part of that umbrella. And they are now working with Black mayors, and they've cited 12 that are joining with them. And they basically had all our language in what they're doing. So we called them up and said, hey, we want to have a meeting. And we know the guys there at Everytown. So we had a meeting and we said, what are you doing? You know, we're trying to be nice, but we're also a little annoyed, but because it sounded like the consortium. Turns out they're focusing solely on litigation with gun manufacturers. So they're just going to go after lawsuits with them. That's what they're using all that money for. So I said, you know, it'd be nice if Bloomberg wanted to invest with some of these developers, because then we might be able to move these products out in the marketplace further. But I was just told, well, you should probably do more work with law enforcement. So, you know, this is the problem. And this is just my frustration at all times. And having done this long, I'm so tired of organizations and public officials not being creative, right? That's what we constantly run up against. And I think Moms Demand does good work on the legislation, and certainly safe storage laws support the work we're doing, right? You can't have a safe storage law and inability to actually store something that you will habitually use. You can say people need to store their guns, but if they are not habitually going to use a lock, it does no good. So we're a bit of an anomaly in this world, but again, power concedes to demand. We will prove a point at some point, and I guarantee you manufacturers will start producing these locks. They'll start coming with it will all happen. We just have to get further down the road with some investment on this. Does that answer it, Don? Sorry, there's a long way around to it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
actually, I think Don, the Joyce Foundation has also told us the same thing, that we're the only people out here doing the work we're doing. Because we'd gone to them to see if we could get some money from them, and they don't want to fund it because we're, part of it is we find foundations don't want to fund us because we're working with police departments right now. Anything else from anybody? I don't see any hands up. Am I missing anything, Diane?
I don't think so. And we can come back to if there's any at the very end.
Yeah.
So you want me to do the next piece?
Yep, I think we're ready to.
All right, great. So I think that the last thing we want to add to here is simply the what if, or imagine if, you will. What if we could raise in our region $100,000 for the Gun Safety Consortium? What if we could increase law enforcement members in Illinois? What if we could get the state of Illinois to use its purchasing power? What if we could create pilot programs in Illinois? What if we could expand into the civilian market here with giveaways? What if we could actually raise money for developers? What if we could get to the venture capital firms and the banks and the universities and the philanthropists? What if we held a local gun safety tech show? What if we established a challenge fund for developers? As I think about our region, we are a large region. We have a lot of gun violence issues here that we're dealing with. We have a lot of money in this region, but we have not worked to get to that place where we can try to demand some changes and some powers and some investment. I think we could. Now, I will say Jim and I and Meta and a few others can keep doing what we're doing on the national front because we're going to keep doing it. We're invested in it. But if you all who showed up here tonight, if some of you, I don't expect everybody, because you might want to work on mental health and housing, but if you have an interest in actually being part of a strategy team that would focus this region, then let us know, because we're going to hold a meeting in November for anybody who wants to try to do this work with us and to strategize around how do we get more power so that we can get that Naperville chief to commit? How do we get to Highland Park from other angles? How do we ensure that Batavia, St. Charles, and Geneva, whose mayor told me a year ago he wanted to join, how do we get them to commit? And then what do we do to get to all of the corporations in downtown Chicago that have so much money they could help move this forward in a minute? Anybody interested in this challenge? Everybody's like, no, I don't know. Oh, look at this. Would you like to be involved? Oh, look at you, Shaquille. All right, we've got a whole survey happening with our tech guy. That's awesome. So what would happen is we'll post a meeting in November, and at that point, we will dig deeper into what it could look like and what it could mean to work more deeply on this issue in a way that we haven't done in a number of years. Does that make sense?
And I was just going to say, if you definitely know you're interested, put your name in the chat now, and we'll make sure we contact you regarding the meeting in November.
And the other thing is, I think the mental health issue, as Jim said in the beginning, we're reclaiming communities with all of these campaigns. Every issue we have is critically important and needs people working on it. So you are not offending us with the Anyone willing to share any reactions?
I just share kind of my thoughts. I'm trying to become more active again. Now that I moved to Chicago, I'm just thinking, and my concern, if say when it comes to gun safety, is every other day there's someone on Facebook saying, "Oh, shots here that happened here," and it's just someone who's just shooting out their cars, playing with their new toys. I'm using up quotes, and it's like I just want that to stop happening. I just want people to stop just playing, stop using guns like their toys, and stop testing them out. That's what I want them to happen, and I don't see this as. I think what this is, the locks are really important, but that's not going to stop people from having guns in Chicago. People are still going to be using them as toys and people when they want. Um, so yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, you're talking about a very complex issue here. That's part of why we're meeting with the ATF directors to talk about distribution and crime guns that come into the streets of Chicago. But that's a whole other layer to this. But what we're focused on is reducing suicides, theft, and accidental shootings. That's what we're focused on. There are 400 million guns in this country. And if half of them are not secured, that's a huge problem. And we're focused on that piece of it. But I appreciate what you're saying. We're not going to be able to stop everything with this campaign, but neither is legislation. We have we have crime gun dealers that are selling guns illegally. We have lots of issues that we need addressed. But this particular campaign is focused on the issue of unsecured guns.
And real quick, Delia, I was just going to mention, Brandy, also, if these guns are secured, then that'll take some of those guns off the street, the new toys, as you said, that people are playing with and just shooting. So that will help in that regard. And as I think Maida said at one point, that over 60% or about 60% of the gun deaths in the country are by suicide. So this will make, this still can make a huge difference if we can stop the majority of the suicides, because if a person attempts suicide once and they don't succeed, they're very unlikely to try it again. But with a gun, unfortunately, they're normally very successful at it.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because there's no way to solve every aspect of this problem. And we get the frustration around that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to say, kind of to her point, I live in Chicago too. I live on the west side, but I work in Waukegan as an organizer. But I think what's important here is to look at what will happen in the future with these type of gun safety, gun locks. Those people that are, doing the shootings and stuff tend to be the high school, kids who take their parents' guns and go, toy around with it and do things of that nature. And that is what causes it to be a little bit more dangerous. So this, in effect, will be a step in the right direction to hopefully limiting that. They may not have access to that gun just sitting around in the house to go and toy with it and things like that. So I think that's what's important to look at. This is a step in the right direction to kind of start limiting that. Those 18-year-old kids can't buy guns. So where are they getting it from? Their parents.
That's a good point. Yep.
Thanks, Playa.
Any other thoughts? Has this been useful for you?
Diane, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Paul Meyer. Just letting you know that the September 27th issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association is entitled Firearms and Violence. And they have about 20 articles related to a lot of the things we've been talking about tonight.
Great, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of attention happening around gun safety, as you've all heard, because we can't remove everyone's guns. So the shift over the past couple of years has been to gun safety. Thank you. That's great. I'll look it up. Jim, any other thoughts?
Well, I think it's We're going to end a little bit early tonight. Thanks everybody for your time. If no one has any other questions, we'll call it a night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much. It was really enlightening. I really appreciate all your efforts.
Thanks for joining.